Good afternoon, Mr. Навон. It's a great pleasure to have you here today. Thank you for joining us. First of all, let's talk about the current trends. Global economic recovery appears to be making headway, but still a number of downside risks remain. How does JP Morgan view these risks and how do they impact Kazakhstan?
Well, thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure to be back in Kazakhstan, especially here in the nice weather that spring offers us. You're right. We are seeing the markets, at least as indicators, are showing us that we've made a lot of progress since the crisis began now 3 years ago. Equity indices have recovered fully. Price of debt is now back to levels of the pre-crisis, and yet we are in a world that the economic reality seems both uncertain and not fully recovered. So, as an example, unemployment is steadily coming down in the United States, but it's coming down at a pace of about 1/10 of a percentage point per quarter, which, having reached over 10% unemployment, we're now in the high 8s. To get down to pre-crisis levels, it's going to take several more years to work this out. Geopolitically, around the world, there remain lots of issues. Fiscally, the debt burden on various countries remain very challenging, and the monetary policy around the world has given rise to lots of concern about future inflation. So, on the one hand, we do have markets that suggest tremendous recovery. On the other hand, economic reality and perception of risk must be high. So, to some extent, between the recovery and the markets, there may be some disconnect, which we at JP Morgan recognize and work with our clients around the globe to make sure that their financing strategies are consistent with these. In terms of the impact of the recovery and the risks that we see going forward on Kazakhstan, we think that Kazakhstan is very well placed, and the asset-rich, natural resource-rich country that you all enjoy bodes very well for the market environment we're in right now, where some of the biggest drivers of financing activity and capital markets activity are around the natural resources, where you enjoy such relative strength when compared with the rest of the world. So the risks are there, and inflationary risks around the world will not spare anyone, including Kazakhstan. But as a general matter, when we look around the stability that you have now been able to generate here post-crisis, we actually feel very comfortable with the Kazakh economy, and I think the risks on a relative basis are more favorable towards Kazakhstan than some of the other countries. So I think you've come out of this very well, and we, from a risk assessment standpoint, feel very comfortable with the Kazakh economy going forward.
You mentioned capital markets. Could you please tell us what is the current attitude of international capital markets towards Kazakhstan and Kazakh companies?
Yeah, well, it's a very favorable attitude at this point. The markets opened up for Kazakh companies, specifically the quasi-sovereigns, very early on. So companies like Kazmunai were able to go out there really in the heart of the crisis, which shows that where investors are looking at the core companies in Kazakhstan, there remains confidence. When you go beyond that, we've seen in the last 6 months or so 3 different banks in Kazakhstan go back and raise euro bonds. JP Morgan happened to have had the fortune of leading 2 of these banks' financings. So once again, we have very relevant recent experience with foreign investors coming back, supporting and investing back in the credit of Kazakhstan companies and financial institutions. The question going forward now is going to be, can we go from the credit markets to investors supporting the equity markets as well? And certainly we have some examples of London-listed Kazakh companies right in the oil and mining spaces. but I think there's going to be receptivity beyond that. So I know that is very topical here as people talk about people's IPOs, and we think the opportunity exists to go from credit to equities as well.
Talk about institutional investors. Where does JP Morgan see opportunities for them in Kazakhstan?
Well, once again, I think it starts with where institutional investors are generally looking to take risks. So the good news is that with low yield environment, institutional investors are looking for risk, and that partly creates some of the enthusiasm and bullish prices that we've been seeing across markets that I referred to earlier. When you think about it from an industry standpoint, the industries of the greatest enthusiasm are specifically around natural resources, where you're so strong. So from a resource, from an industry standpoint, Kazakhstan is very well situated, where institutional investors and companies looking to invest are going to continue to be very, very supportive of what you have going on here in your economy. The question is going to be, when we go outside of these industries, can we get the same level of support? As I mentioned, on the banking side, we're already seeing support and willingness to invest by institutional investors in some Kazakh banks. It's selective, and we might want to see that extend. And I think this comes right back to the question of what opportunities are there, what's the right balance between public and private ownership. But I think that for the right opportunities, international institutional investors will stand behind this economy, because this is a stable place, and where investors believe that there is stability and an opportunity to make money, they're going to follow, and we're very bullish on the opportunity here.
Sir, in general, how does JP Morgan view Kazakhstan's post-crisis economic model? Well,
I'm not well positioned to evaluate policy per se, but what I can tell you is, as an outside market participant, the proof is in the pudding, in the sense that the policy has played out very well. Stability is in the system. The economy is thriving. There's an asset-rich and a very strong national wealth fund, which gives market participants a sense of security. And that means that we get enthusiastic about a place where we can do business, because the risk-reward ratio is sensible for us. So I think the economic policy from an impact standpoint has been very solid, and once again, the proof is in the pudding.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for sharing your views with us. It's been very helpful.
Thank you very much.